Hi, everyone. Today we have a really incredible guest and person that has been very inspiring to many of us during this COVID-19 pandemic. And I've learned a lot hearing her, and hopefully you will enjoy hearing from her today. She has an amazing background. She was instrumental in founding Emancipate in Austin and has really made such a tremendous contribution to the life-saving efforts in the city of Austin. In 2008, she joined as executive director and leader of Austin Pets Alive and has really shown that community how to continue their life-saving effort in a way that engages the whole community and brings everyone together. So I'm so happy to share that our guest is Dr. Ellen Jefferson. Welcome.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
Absolutely. I'm just thrilled that I even have you for 5 minutes to do an interview, given that you are constantly on the go, constantly trying to communicate, reading veterinary articles and journals, and just keeping up with all these things. And I don't know how you're still standing. Are you getting any sleep at all?
Yeah, it feels like this week is finally feeling a little bit better than the previous 2 weeks before that. So yeah, I think it's okay. There's a lot going on and it changes every minute. So it's been a whirlwind of activities. I think all of us, including you, must be very tired. But it's all worth it. You know, we're just trying to stay ahead of the game to make sure that animals in our care are safe and are going to stay safe.
Tell me about your team. How are they handling everything? What's it like for them?
I think that, my guess is that most of them have felt pretty overwhelmed with the situation, the human situation, outside of the work situation, but just having to grapple with this disease and the social distancing and everything getting shut down and having people in their families that are at high risk for catching the disease. I think probably every single person in America feels very stressed out about all that. And then on top of that, in the shelter situation here in Austin, we're considered essential services, which we want. And that means that our work continues, even though we're in a shelter in place order right now in Austin. And that's also stressful because we are talking to the public in certain situations where we're putting in all the barriers we can possibly think of to make that safe and to make sure that we're achieving a 90% social distancing. But it's still stressful because I think there's some uncertainty about exactly how you catch the disease, and all these people can be non-symptomatic and still give the disease to others. And so I think it's a stressful time, but I'm impressed. We've been doing team by team meetings, Zoom meetings, and meeting with every single person on staff. And I'm really impressed with their resiliency and their upbeat attitude and their just interest in making sure that animals are taken care of and that we're doing the right thing for them. And even though we're still placing animals in foster homes, and so is the city of Austin. And I think that we recognize that maybe that's even where the largest risk is, but we believe that we can do it as safely as we can humanly do, and it's still worth it to keep trying. So it's a good group of people. I'm really proud of them, and I think nothing brings you together like a crisis, right?
That is true. That is true. But I would like to have you talk a little bit about a blog that you wrote just this past week. I hadn't seen anything like that before, and I just really thought it was spectacular.
Thank you. That's really nice. There's like 3 of us that have read it. I appreciate that.
No, that can't be true.
Well, it actually is a product of some of the conversations that we've been having in the group that you're bringing together, and just the we have a lot of people from different backgrounds with different interests and different priorities, honestly. And it's hard to understand where we're each coming from because we're using the same language to communicate when really there's more nuance to it, and and we're not potentially saying the same thing, even though we're using the same words. And so my intention with that was to try to help increase transparency around decision making, at least at our organization and through American Pets Alive, that it's it's not about choosing one or the other, but choosing life-saving or protecting the public or our staff. It's not about minimizing the impact that our activities could have on people, or minimizing the impact that it could have on life-saving throughout the country. And so I think it's just that trying to distill it down to language that maybe helps delineate exactly where we are on this spectrum. There's probably a spectrum of philosophies regarding this whole epidemic, and trying to say, okay, well, we're here. This is what we're trying to do. We're not militant save animals and let people die, and we're not militant people are the only thing that's important to us. And so it's just trying to frame that in a way that is understandable, was what I was going for. So I'm glad that it resonated and made sense to you. And I think it is also really interesting that we talk about 90% in terms of no-kill. In Austin, we believe that it's more like 95%, 96%. But it's interesting that I hadn't seen the human world put the social distancing into percentages until I read this article from the University of Texas, and it just sort of hit me like, oh, we're trying to achieve a 90% social distancing, and if we can talk about it in those terms, then it doesn't feel so foreign, like social distancing. It's like, oh, well, I can't even talk to my family members. I can't pass somebody at work. No, it's not that. It's just decreasing everything you do, looking at it and saying, how can I only do 10% or less of that with other people, and just trying to get it down.
Well, what I really liked also about it was putting in that context and doing, being able to bring those two different issues together in a way that was very digestible. But I really liked at the end of the blog, it's almost like you provided a logic model for how to make good decisions. I really hope that this situation changes how we treat cats and animal shelters. Can you talk a little bit about your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I really hope so too. I'm right there with you that cats should not be in shelters. There's no reason for them to be in shelters. The cats are so rehomable from home to home also, and there's not a purpose for them coming into the shelter. I think that going, like you said, going back to the rabies, that at least in Austin, I did a big research study on the city of Austin's whole sheltering model all the way from the 1890s, and cats weren't even part of the equation for rabies.
Right?
It never came up at all.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we got a vaccine, we had been rounding up dogs for 50 years and taking them to a shelter, got a vaccine, but they kept rounding up dogs and then threw in cats for some reason. And I think it's because it just sort of became what the shelter did, not because of rape. Like there was no conscious effort put into this is no longer applicable because rabies is no longer a huge concern. Obviously, it's a concern, but with the vaccine available and the massive number of animals being vaccinated and state law requiring vaccination, all those things make it far less likely that there would be human death associated with it. And so for cats, they just sort of got thrown in by accident, and it's really unfortunate because they've been killed hand over fist in shelters far more than probably anything else that could possibly happen to cats. I think that neonatal kittens is another one that we're really excited's probably not the word, but interested to find out this year what that looks like, because the city, we normally take the majority of the neonatal kittens from the city and then run them through our bottle baby nursery and foster and then adoption. And that's generally $1,200 to $1,200 a year. This year so far, they're not taking any because unless they're injured or ill. And so we're starting to figure out how can we support the community in a way that will help them determine if they really need to be picked up and taken from their nest or not. And I think what's really exciting about that is that because we have fewer animals in our city shelter and consequently in our shelter, and also because we've been trying to get animals out of our shelter so that we don't have staff shortages, that we now can actually help people make their own decisions out there instead of just being the answer for everything. We were trying to create a solution for a shelter, for a system and a problem that was built on just taking everything with no questions asked. But now we have a chance to sort of rethink the whole thing. So exciting.
So what are some of the things that you really want to see come out of sheltering and how we do things on the other side of COVID-19? Like, what's your dream? What does it look like? I know you have an idea in your head.
I do. I hope that we can keep the door shut forever to just random intake, and that it's a well thought out process of, let's say it's a person that's experiencing a problem with their animal, and there's a series of doors they can walk through instead of one door, which is what we currently have. And the one door goes to the shelter, the animal enters the system, and once they're in the system, especially a crowded shelter with 10,000 plus animals coming through a year, the manpower, woman power needed to get eyes on that animal again, kind of bring it back out to the world, is really, really hard. That's a lot of time and effort that is spent on trying to get animals adopted and moved to foster homes. And so if we can create a system where instead of everybody goes through that door, that maybe there's a door for a community hospital. So somebody needs help keeping their pet because of medical problems. There's a door for temporary boarding because somebody needs to go to rehab, but they want their pet. Why does that one have to go through the system and be rehomed? It has a home, it has somebody who loves them. They just can't keep him for a while. I think having the access to volunteers and even staff that can help in the field, instead of having field services mean that you go to the field and bring back animals, it's more of actually helping in the field. So that might be building fences or showing people how to look to see if the mom cat is coming back. There's so much that we could be doing. And I think this gives us the opportunity to reset and think about it all over again. Like, what would we have built without rabies? If rabies had never happened, we would never have this institution. What would it have looked like if it had organically come to fruition without rabies?
When I onboard new team members and staff members in this space, it's so important for them to understand the journey we've been on and our evolution as an industry, because without that context, you don't understand how it happened. And I do presentations where I say things like, can somebody please tell me why we bring cats into animal shelters? They have been just fine for 10,000 years. And then somebody in the 1960s thought, well, hey, let's start bringing them in and treating them like a dog. And, so for me, it's been an amazing journey for me after 25 years of having to learn and then relearn. And that's what I really love about this collaboration with COVID-19 is that, how powerful will it be if we're able to bring all of our points of view and create that new model of life saving that has nothing to do with a shelter and has everything to do with animal control officers and social service personnel helping people keep their pets. I just want to thank you so much for your time today and all the amazing work that you've been doing, Dr. Jefferson. It's been a real joy to get to know you in this process. And I just want to thank you for everything you're doing. And I'm going to lecture you and tell you, you need to eat healthy, you need to drink water, you need to sleep so that we can all get through this together.
Yeah, well, I'm just so appreciative to you. You really are bringing people together that never would have convened, and it's amazing. It's going to be groundbreaking. I think that just for the industry, even alone, we're going to see leaps and bounds of progress because we're all talking, and that's because of you. So
No, it's because of all of us. Everybody, a conversation is two ways. So, all right. Well, congratulations on all your amazing accomplishments and keep up the amazing work. And let's keep talking. I want to know what you're doing. And I know that something tells me we're probably going to talk a lot in the coming weeks. So have a good night. And thank you so much.
Thanks. You too.
All right. Bye-bye.